So if you picked up your papers or you picked up your phone and you wanted to look at Detroit Tigers news, obviously with them in a 1-9 slump, them only winning that one game on Sunday Night Baseball against the Texas Rangers, them getting absolutely obliterated yesterday versus the Blue Jays. You were hoping for maybe some deadline news, like, hey, can the Tigers make a deal? Obviously, we heard yesterday that the Seattle Mariners acquired Josh Naylor, and today the Yankees acquired Ryan McMahon from the Colorado Rockies. Now, it's very interesting because the beat writers, Cody Stavenhagen, Evan Petzold of the Free Press, I think it's the Detroit News, whatever the case may be. Oh, the Free Press. They came out with articles saying that Detroit Tigers would not be aggressive. And there was an article from Evan Petzold saying, like, look, they're going to bank on the strategy. Here is an article from Cody Stavenhagen, and it says in the article, it says Detroit is going to add at the trade deadline, but much like last season, there it's also banking on internal improvements. On herald names like Drew Summers are percolating in the minors, Alex Lang, who could potentially come back from an injury. Even though they're pragmatic, he was talking about the pragmaticism. What happens if you don't go for it in the golden shot? But the Tigers feel like their approach has worked, and it has worked. The Detroit Tigers approach really has worked when you look at it from their perspective. Because, look, there's going to be a lot of people that are upset the Detroit Tigers are not going to go make this bold move or something like that. Here's what the Detroit Tigers can't do. The Detroit Tigers can't go out and make some bold, stupid move that gives up one of their top 5 prospects. They just can't do it. They can't. Like there's no way you could sit here and say that's a good idea. McGonigal, Clark, Brasino, these guys are untouchables in my opinion. And Rayner, like there's just this Tigers team has a lot of good prospects, and your good prospects, even in the 5 through 10 range, are really good. I'd be open to giving one of the 5 of the 10, but I'm not giving up the top 5. Period. End of story. And when teams make these demands, when the Tigers call, they're going to be asking about McGonigal. They're going to be asking about Clark, and it's like, no, unless it's Mookie Betts or it's Shohei Ohtani or something like that. No, like unless it's a superstar player, no. But these general managers are going to do what they're supposed to do, because remember when we got Miguel Cabrera, we traded 2 guys who had potential, Andrew Miller and Jacob Turner. We got Dontrell Willis out of the deal, and I guess Miguel Cabrera, and it worked out. Those are when you say, yes, we'll do it. But when you see the guys that are on the trade deadline acquisitions, there's not many that you would go, yes, I would give my top 5 prospect for, okay? That's just the way it goes. And these 2 reporters, Cody Stavenhagen and Evan Petzold, obviously they were talking to Scott Harris off the record. When these newspapers that are different entities, they're not the same entity. They're doing this because they heard it straight from the source. Scott Harris talked to him, or Jeff Greenberg talked to him, the general manager. Scott Harris is the president of baseball operations. Jeff Greenberg is the general manager. And when you hear this, and you hear both outlets reporting the same but different messaging, it leads you to believe that either there's 2 things that could be going on. Scott Harris is trying to cool the market because obviously people in Detroit are expecting a move, or he's trying to over-deliver. And if he over-delivers, good. A lot of Tigers fans will be happy, and especially if they don't give up one of their top 5 prospects, it'll be all good. If he under-delivers, they know exactly where it came from. If they under-deliver and he just goes to get a run-of-the-mill bullpen arm, it could work out. It could also not work out. And, in a year where you have a really good team, best record in baseball up until the last 10 games, you can make a move. And you can make a move, and it could be minuscule. But the Detroit Tigers, all the people that are just saying, like, oh, we got to go out there and we got to get this talent. We got to go out here and make a bold move. Make a bold move for what? What are you going to make a bold move for? Who are you going to make a bold move for? I see Eugenio Suarez. Am I going to give up a top 5 prospect for that guy? Absolutely not. Like if you give up a top 5 prospect for Eugenio Suarez, you're just a dummy. And if you're Scott Harris or you're Jeff Greenberg, you're going to be on the unemployment line pretty soon. Because if someone can get a top 5 prospect from you out of Eugenio Suarez, what other junk is going to be sold to you at the at trade deadline time? You know, I remember El Avila saying that we didn't have the market for Nick Castellanos, and he basically quilled the market for that. What I like about what Scott Harris is doing is he's saying, look, we want to make a move. We expect to make a move. He didn't say that what you see in the articles, they all outline that they're going to make a move, even as minuscule as they can, but they're not going to go over and above and beyond and get rid of their future talent. And it would be stupid for them to get rid of their future talent. Like this Tigers team has really positioned himself to be a really good team going forward. And I know a lot of people don't like the prospect angle, especially with the way the Tigers and the Red Wings have been using the prospects as, future guidance. But when you look at the guys that they have, Clark and McGonigal, and you look at the way they're playing, does it make sense to trade them away? And a lot of people, they use this stupid angle. I heard it on 97 to take it from Jeff Rieger, and I expected a lot more from Jeff Rieger, but he's the Baltimore Orioles angle. The reason the Baltimore Orioles stunk this year is because their pitching stunk, and they don't have any pitchers. That's why they were trying to trade for Tarek Skubal last year. That's why they were rumored to trade for Tarek Skubal. But when you don't have a team when you're the Orioles, you might have to give up something to get something. And last year they weren't willing to give a Jackson Holiday, and they weren't with Colby Mayo for some top upper echelon talent. The Tigers are not in that position. This is a team that got to 60 wins the first. They were first team to 60 wins. They were first team to 50 wins. Are they having a bad stretch? Yes, and we all expected this to happen at one point. At one point, the Tigers had a 99.6% chance to make the playoff. And today, as we sit here today on Fangraphs, they got let me pull it up right now. The Tigers have a 96.2% chance to make the playoff. So again, there's a very good chance that the Tigers make a move. Are they going to make this bold move? Are they going to make this big trade? I doubt it. Are they going to get rid of a top 5 prospect to get someone in here to help out for a year? I mean, as good as Eugenio Suarez can be, Eugenio Suarez is not going to change this lineup. He's just not. He might help the lineup, but he's not going to change the lineup. And if you had to give up one of your top 5 prospects, because that's what was rumored to be, but with the Yankees dodging out with getting Ryan McMahon, the Mariners getting Josh Naylor, maybe the market's closing on you can potentially get him for a cheaper price. And that would be great, but the Detroit Tigers need to stay fast on their development. They're a good team, and they have been really good for this whole year. And this one little stretch isn't going to turn out as they're going to be a bad team. This one little stretch is going to show you that even the best teams have a little bit of trouble at some point in time. I remember the Detroit Red Wings in 2002 when they won the Stanley Cup, and they were one of the best teams ever. They struggled in March. I think they were like 5-11 in March or something crazy like that. And they come back and they win the cup. So just because you struggle right now doesn't mean that you're going to struggle forever. And the players that you have, like Riley Green, he can't be striking out as much as he is. Colt Keith can't be as bad as he is. It really don't matter who you bring in right now, because if your best players like Colt Keith and Riley Green are ass, you're not going anywhere. You could bring in anybody, and it's not going to change anything. Unless you're bringing in Shohei Ohtani, you're bringing in Aaron Judge, then it'll change. But your best players have to become your best players. Period. End of story. And that's where we're going to end this with the JC Sports Detroit YouTube video on the Detroit Tigers. The Detroit Tigers won't be aggressive, and they really shouldn't be. Subscribe and like and rate and comment. If you have a different opinion, I'll deal with you in the comments. See you in the next video as we talk more Detroit Tigers.